Alright, welcome back. And what we have now, we have that Unity has loaded and created the URP project. He says the materials in your project were created using an older version of the Universal Render Pipeline. That's the default. You can't do much about it. Unity must upgrade them to be compatible with your current version of URP. And so you say, okay, and he starts doing the conversion. You just have to wait. And okay, there's nothing right now to convert. You can close the Unity hub. You don't need it anymore. You can maximize the window for Unity. And the first thing I do always in the project, I take this handle and move it all the way to the left. This way I can see the list of files and folders in details mode. And the advantage is no matter how long a name is, you can always read it. Whereas in any other position, as you can see, all the names are truncated. No matter how large you make the icon, there's always a part that is truncated essentially. And names can get really long, so my answer is this. Plus, I can clearly see that there is all this space free for me now. So for instance, I could take the console and stick it in here. Now my messages have quite a bit of space to be displayed. And I don't even have to see them always all. I could do this, right? I could partially cover them, but the point is, if I want, I can see them. Okay, usually these, I collapse them, and okay, actually no, usually I don't. This I collapse, sorry. This usually I collapse, and since is there by default apparently on a brand new project. So this is the sample scene, and you can tell in which scene you are currently because on the title you can see it here. That's in case you have multiple. In this case there's only one, so it must be that one, right? But if there were more than one, you have a doubt of which one you're in. So this is it. Now there is a peculiarity. Every scene that Unity creates has a camera, directional light, and also a global volume where you can specify how things look, tone mapping, bloom, vignette, something we'll look at later some other time. Now, when we create a brand new scene, like here, like let's call it main, we are still in sample scene, right? Just because we create it doesn't mean we move there. Also, let's say we make some changes here, for instance, the volume, let's say we delete it. Okay, so there's an asterisk now. We can save it or not. So let's say Ctrl S to save it. So the asterisk is gone. Now we double click on main because we are still on sample scene. Now we double click on main, and now that's it. Finally, we can delete the original one. So this one doesn't have a volume. It has a main camera and a directional light. This is the default. Every new scene you create in Unity by default has a camera and a directional light. You can remove them, of course, but it's also true that you need a camera and some light to be able to see something. So they make some sense at least. Okay, so what do we do now? We have a brand new project. Typically we want to create some folders and we want to follow the conventions of all Unity projects. So for instance we can right click, say create, and we say folders and create one that called materials. Notice that it is empty because there's no file, right? We just created it. And we can go on and add another one called scripts. Again, these tend to be all small projects, tend to have settings, tutorial info no, but materials, scenes, scripts, settings, they're usually all there. I say small project because this is a vertical arrangement of the data, meaning per category we are setting up folders. But if we had a really big game, a really big project, probably we would start having something like level 1, and inside level 1 we would have materials, scripts, scenes, and so on, right? So it would be horizontal, so to say. Every level has a little bit of materials, a little bit of models, a little bit of textures, a little bit of scripts, and so on. But on a small project, typically you don't do that because you just don't have so many materials or so many scripts anyway, so you can put them all in the same file, in the same folder, even though they may span across different levels. It's okay. Alright, very well. So let's go here and what we have here. Unity Hub, create your first Unity project, we did it. Standard folders, let's see what we have. Okay, we mentioned few scene settings, materials, prefabs. Okay, this is in scripts. We have them all, so except for prefabs, we didn't miss any. So let's right click, create, and we say prefabs. Alright, now we have them all. So how do we use each of these? Well, let's start putting some objects in the scene, for instance a cube. Notice that it's blue initially, and then it becomes an actual color. So don't be scared if it is blue, it just means that the corresponding shader hasn't been compiled yet. And every time you create a brand new project, for a little bit, the first few things you create, they will be blue. But, give it a few seconds and eventually they become whatever color they are supposed to be. And let's call this avatar, for instance. And we check in the transform and it's 000, so we are good. Now we want to give it like some place to stand on, plane, and we call it ground. Right? Notice that it's also in 000, but because the center, the pivot of the cube is in the center of the cube, it looks like it's half up and half down. So let's select the avatar and let's lift it half a meter up, or half a foot if you want to think it this way. Stick to one unit of measurement and be consistent in your head. Unity doesn't care, doesn't really have units of measurements. And so now it looks like it's being on it, right? Now we are not detecting collision, we are not detecting the ground yet, none of that, right? But at least it looks like it. Of course, if I push the avatar like this, it looks like a Wile Coyote that is walking beyond the cliff but still doesn't fall, right? At least for a few seconds. In this case, it never falls because there's no gravity. Anyway, let's not get that. So we have the ground, and now we want to give a material, because we want to change the color of the ground, we want to change the color of the avatar, so we get in the material folder, we right click and we say create, and there you go, more or less halfway, material, and I can say avatar. I like to say underscore MAT, so it just pops. And this big rectangular white rectangle, I can change it, let's say we make it teal. Now, notice that this circular icon is also something that means material, so if you don't want to use this suffix like I do, you just look at the icon and say, oh, this is a circular icon, so that's material. Okay, now let's create another material for the ground. And we make it, I don't know, ochre, something like that. And we can just drag and drop it on it, okay? Very well, so it looks a little better. So notice the shadow that depends on the direction of the light. There you go. So if you click on it, it tells you the direction. Like the camera, it tells you, the frost tone, right? Okay, so basically, we have to drag and drop the materials on top of the objects. And there is a catch. So let's say we create a new object, a sphere. Okay? Let's move it on the side, let's say -2. Let's also lift it by half a meter of foot. Now if we assign the avatar material also to the sphere, okay? The sphere is not the avatar, but let's say we assign the same material to both. You may get the impression that looking at the inspector, when you click on either the avatar or the sphere at the bottom in the inspector, there is always the material with the shader and all that, right? And it says, well, the material is this. Okay, that makes sense. But what is maybe not obvious is that Unity doesn't duplicate the materials when you drag and drop them onto two objects, for instance, or more than two. It just takes a reference, meaning the object takes a reference to the material, back to the project tab. That means that if I use the shortcut in the inspector of assessing the cube's material, the avatar's material, color, and I change it, notice that both of them change because they both referring to this material. So drag and dropping the material onto the object doesn't copy it, just takes a reference to it. Now, certain things Unity makes copies, certain things just takes a reference. The material is one of those things that takes a reference. So if we want to, make the sphere have a different color, for instance, than the avatar, we can, for example, click the avatar, say, instead of again going create material, I can just take a shortcut. I select the material, doesn't matter which one, Control D or Command D on the Mac, and I duplicate it. Of course, I have to change the name, otherwise it makes no sense. And I can say, I don't know, sphere. And now I can give it, another color. Let's say green. Okay, very good. Of course, nothing has changed. The sphere is not green yet, but now that I drag and drop it there, bingo. So now, if I click on the sphere and I change the color of the sphere only changes color. And if I click on the cube and I go to the colors of the cube, well, right now only the cubes changes color. So, okay, great. Control C, I like field better. And I don't have a use for the sphere yet, so now once in a while it's good to say file, save project. I think that as far as materials go and the default folders, I think we have covered enough materials with this video, so I think it's enough. Thank you.